Hello, I hope my videos have been of good use to you, and if so, I would want you to give me a feedback and like these videos, and you can share with people that really need it, probably friends that are in need of these videos. You can share with them. And my name is Daniel. I'll be taking you through the second example for finding the root of a polynomial function having a degree that is more than 2. We have discussed other ones that have a degree equal to 2. We were able to use the quadratic formula to find the root of that particular quadratic equation when we realized the equation was complex. If you haven't seen the previous video under this, you need to watch Introduction to Division of Polynomials. It's very important. It will help you to understand the concept, and you can come back to this video, especially for those of you that this is the first time you are seeing this. So in this one, we have x raised to the power 4 minus 1 equal to 0. We want to find the root. So the first thing we do is to find a common factor, and we break the equation down to the x squared term. Then we can use quadratic equation to complete the calculation. Since we know the root will be complex, there are also missing terms here. I'm actually taking examples that have missing terms. We have the cubic term that is missing, the square term is also missing, and the x term is also missing. So we have x raised to the power 4 and then a constant. Once I start the division, I will bring back this equation. Since everything is 0, I'll bring back these equations and explain it for you to understand. There is no need to do that. If you really know what you are doing, there's no need to write that. So for this question, before we can be able to find the root of the function, we need to locate a common factor for this. Now, to be able to find that value, we can just do it by inspection. What value that when you substitute for x and you subtract 1 from it will give you 0. And it's very simple. We can just use, we can start with 0. Usually, I want you to try error and see, depending on those of us that have issues with something like this. So let's punch the equation on the calculator. We have here, we are substituting a value for x. So let's start with 0 to power 4 minus 1. We need to get 0. Now this is giving us negative 1. So we can start another value like 1. Now look at this, we are having 0. So this means 1 is a factor of x raised to the power 4 minus 1. So this factor 1, this value 1 that we have here, is telling us that after we finish the calculation or after we complete the calculation, 1 is part of the root. 1 will be part of the root of the equation that we have here. So we can use it. So 1 is a factor of what? X 4 minus 1. X is equal to 1. We were able to get 0 here. So now 1 is a factor of the function. So we can get a function by equating x is equal to 1 to 0. So we have x minus 1 equal to 0. So you just bring this here. Now x minus 1 is now a function of x raised to the power 4 minus 1. So now we can use x minus 1, which is our binomial function, to do the division. And that is what we will use to break this down. Now this becomes our divisor, so we write it out like this, x minus 1, then we put in x raised to the power 4 minus 1, but I will repeat the missing terms by using 0, so plus 0x cubed plus 0x squared plus 0x minus 1. There is no need for you to do this, but I'm actually doing it for explanation's sake. So this term, this one, and this are missing terms. So now we can do the division. And to do this division, we just take x raised to the power 4 by this x. Whatever we have here, whether there was a constant here or not, we just take it to do the division. So when I do that, I am getting x raised to the power 4 dividing x, x4 dividing x. This will cancel this. We are getting s cubed. So now we write the s cubed here. Now, x cubed times x. Use the result you have gotten to multiply the divisor. So s cubed times x will give us x to the power 4. Now, s cubed times 1 will give us minus x cubed. Now, we are about to subtract this result from our dividend. We learned that this here is the dividend and this is the divisor. So you underline this and we subtract this result from the dividend. Now this is how we do the subtraction. Negative times this will give us minus x raised to the power 4. Add it to this term. When we add it here, the result is 0. We are done with that, so we don't write it. It's 0. No need to write it down. Then I'll use this. Negative times this will give me x raised to the power 3. Add it to its term. The term we have here is already 0. So when we add it to that term, the result is still giving us x raised to the power 3. That is what we have. Now, there is no other term that we can subtract, so we have to restart the division all over again. And to do that, now we were left with 1, 2, 3 that we didn't tackle. All you need to do is add it to this one. So we have plus 0x squared plus 0x minus 1. Now, the next step is we are about to start the division all over again. Take x raised to the power 3, divide the result by x. So we have x3 over x. This is giving us x squared. So now we have plus x squared. X squared times x will give us x raised to the power 3. X squared times 1 will give us minus x squared. Now we are about to subtract this result from our new dividend. So put this in bracket, subtract it, and underline. Now negative times this will give us minus x cubed. Add it to this result, we are getting 0. No need to put it down. This time this will give us x squared. Add it to this one, the result is still x squared. So we have x squared. Remember that this term is already 0. So 0 plus this will give us what? X squared. Don't forget this time this will give you positive x squared. Now we are done with this part. There is no other term we can subtract. So we have to repeat 1, 2 and add it to this one. So we have plus 0x minus 1. Now we need to start the calculation all over again. Take x squared and divide it by the same x. We are getting x. Now we have to put it here. Plus x. X times this will give us what? X squared. X times 1 will give us minus x. Now we can subtract this result. This time this will give us minus x squared. Add it to this, the result is 0. This time this will give us plus x. Add it to 0, the result is still what? X. Now we are done with that part. We are left with negative 1. Bring it here. Now do the division all over again. X divided by this x will give us what? Plus 1. 1 times x is giving us what? X. And 1 times negative 1, we are getting negative 1. Subtract this result from the new dividend. Now, negative times this will give us negative x. Add it to this one, the result is 0. This times 1 will give us positive 1. Add it to negative 1, the result is 0. So the remainder is what? 0. Now, we are done with this calculation. Now, we learned in the introduction video that after we are done, we take what we call the quotient. Now, whatever result we have here is called the quotient at the top here. And whatever we have here was our dividend, and this was our divisor. So now the quotient times the divisor plus the remainder should be equal to the dividend. So now let's do that. So this is it. Our quotient at the top times our divisor should be equal to what? Our dividend plus 0. Don't forget our remainder was 0. But remember that our quotient is still an x cubed term. I cannot use the quadratic equation to find the root of this. I need to pick only the quotient and work it out again. Break it down to the x squared term and find the common what? Common factor. So we consider only the quotient and we redo the division again. Now when you look at this equation, we need to break it down to the x squared term, then we can find the other root using the quadratic equation. So therefore we check this common factor by inspection, like I said, the first one we did. So now let's inspect. We have x cubed plus x squared plus x plus 1 should be equal to 0. So let's use the variable 1. X cubed plus x squared. We are assuming that x is equal to 1 plus 1 plus 1. And what result are we getting? We are getting 4. So this means 1 is not a factor of the function. So let's use negative 1. So this is negative 1, negative 1, negative 1. Now, you see, the result is giving us what? 0. Now we know that negative 1 is a factor of our quotient. So now we can use negative 1 to do the division. So we have to equate it to 0. So we have x, we cross this one, plus 1 is equal to what? 0. So x plus 1 is our new function. It's a binomial function that can be used to divide this one. So we call it the divisor. So now we start the division all over again. So we have our x plus 1, which is our divisor. We draw and we put in our dividend. Now we can start one by one. So x cubed divided by x will give us x squared. Write the x squared here. X squared times x will give us x cubed. X squared times 1 will give us plus x squared. Subtract this result from the dividend. So now this is it. Negative times this will give us negative x cubed. Plus this will give us 0. We don't put it down. This time this will give us what? Negative x squared. Plus this will give us 0. So we can see that part 2 we don't put it down. So we are left with x plus 1. No, there is no remainder here, so we just pick our x plus 1 and start the calculation all over again. Now pick your x divided by x. X divided by this will give us 1. So plus 1. 1 times x will give us x. 1 times 1 will give us plus 1. Now subtract this result from our new dividend. Now negative times this will give us negative x. Add it to this one, we are getting 0. Negative times 1 will give us negative 1. Add it to 1, we are getting 0. So the remainder is what? 0. Now we are done with the division. Now what is our quotient? Our new quotient is x squared plus 1, and this is our divisor, this is our dividend. So now our dividend is equal to divisor times quotient plus remainder. And so this is it. This is what we have. Now remember that when we equate only this side to 0, we can find x to be what? 1, which is our first factor. But x squared plus 1 is a quadratic equation. We need to use quadratic formula to solve it. Then generate the root of this one, add it to this, and then the previous one that we had, which is negative 1. Now in our final step, we are coming to consider only the quotient x squared plus 1 because we are not done. We need the root of this one because the roots are supposed to be 4 because the main function given to us was x raised to the power 4 minus 1. So we are going to get 4 roots. We first found one, which is 1. We found another one, which is negative 1. And then we are left with this, and then we are left with 2 that we will get here. We will find 2 here. When we add it to the other result, we get 4 of them. So now from our new quadratic equation coming from the quotient, we have x squared plus 1 is equal to 0. I have compared it with this one. So a is 1, b term is not there, it is 0, and c is equal to 1. So we can use the quadratic formula to complete the calculation. Now let's input the values into the formula. We have x is equal to b is 0. So we have 0 minus 0 plus or minus root of 0 squared minus 4. A is already 1. And c is 1. So we divide this one by 2 into 1. So now we are left with x is equal to plus or minus root of this will give us neg 4 all divided by 2. And this is giving us plus or minus root of 4 times root of negative 1. Note that this time this will give us root of 4 all divided by 2. Now so we have x is equal to plus or minus root of 4 will give us 2i all divided by 2. And this is giving us 2 over 2i. Now 2 into this one will give us 1. So the result is 1 plus or minus I. So 1i is the same as I. So therefore we are getting 2 roots. X is equal to I, and then x is equal to negative what? I. Now these are the 2 roots of x squared plus 1. They are all complex. So now this is what we have. Now this 2 plus this one plus this one, add the root of x raised to the power 4 minus 1 equal to what? 0. So the root of the equation x raised to the power 4 minus 1 are, the first one we got 1, the next one was minus 1, the third one was I, and the fourth one was minus I. So these are our roots.